The Quarantine Girl in the Glass Chamber. Inside the cold and silent lab on the dark side of Station Helix 9, human engineer Kyle moved quietly through the maintenance corridor. He was just there to fix a cooling vent. Nothing special, nothing dangerous. That's what they told him. But as he passed the restricted section, something made him stop. A faint sound, like breathing, then a soft knock. Tap, tap, tap. It came from behind the reinforced glass wall that was sealed shut with 6 security locks and red warning lights. Kyle frowned and looked closer. The room inside was white, full of scanners and machines he did not understand. In the center stood a tall glass chamber glowing with a pale blue light, and inside that chamber floated a girl, not human. Her skin was soft silver like moonlight, and her hair moved slowly like it was underwater. But it was her face that stopped his heart. She looked afraid. Her glowing violet eyes were filled with tears. He stepped closer and read the signs on the glass. Warning: alien hostile. Do not touch. Level 9. Biohazard. Below it, written in bold red, death on contact. Kyle had never heard of a level 9 case before. Even the worst outbreaks on war planets were level 6. Why was this one kept so deep underground? Why was she crying? The girl saw him. Her eyes locked with his. She didn't look hostile. She looked tired. Alone. Slowly she reached up her hand and pressed it against the glass. He hesitated, then raised his hand too. His fingers hovered just inches from hers with only the thick glass between them. She mouthed something. Kyle blinked and leaned in. She mouthed again. Help me. Please. He felt something twist in his chest. It wasn't fear. It was wrongness. Something about this felt deeply wrong. Why would a deadly alien ask for help like a scared child? Why would she cry if she only brought death? He turned to leave. It wasn't his job. He was just an engineer. But halfway down the hall, he stopped again. Something about her face wouldn't leave his mind. He told himself he'd just check her file, just to know what she was. Just to understand. That night, when the station was quiet and the lights dimmed, Kyle returned to the restricted zone. He had hacked into the access panel using an old engineer override code. His hands were shaking. He knew if he got caught, he could be court-martialed or worse. The chamber room was colder this time. She was still awake. She sat curled up in the corner of the glass cell like a child in a cage. Her silver skin shimmered under the lights and her breathing looked weak. He whispered through the glass. "Who are you?" She looked at him and her lips trembled. "Lyra," she said softly. Kyle stared. She had a name. That wasn't in the file. Nothing was. Her record was locked under maximum clearance. Just one line showed, Project E311. Terminate on escape attempt. He felt sick. She wasn't a monster. She was a prisoner. No trial, no rights, just hidden away to rot alone. He pressed his hand to the glass again. "I'm Kyle," he whispered. Her fingers slowly rose and touched the same spot. His chest tightened. They just sat there for a long time, hand to hand through the barrier. 2 lives separated by fear. Suddenly alarms blared far away in another sector. Emergency lights flickered. Something exploded in the distance. Station Helix 9 was under attack. Chaos began outside. But inside this chamber, everything was still. Then the power flickered. For a brief second, the glass between them lit up and then shut down. The locks unsealed. The warning lights turned dark. Kyle panicked. "No, no, no," he muttered. If the glass failed, she would die, or he would. But Lyra didn't move. She just stared at him and whispered again, "Please, I don't want to die alone." Kyle's hand was already reaching toward the emergency release switch. His mind screamed to stop. His training, his logic, all of it said run, but something in her eyes, something not alien, something deeply human, stopped his fear. With one deep breath, Kyle unlocked the chamber, and the door slowly opened. She didn't attack. She didn't scream. She just looked at him, and then she collapsed into his arms. Her body felt warm, alive, not deadly, and Kyle realized one thing. They had lied. Everything about her was a lie. But now it was too late to turn back. He held her close as sirens echoed behind him, and in that moment, her glowing eyes slowly closed, and she whispered, "Thank you." Her touch burns, but not like fire. Kyle had never carried someone like her before. Her body felt soft but heavy, like she didn't belong in this world's gravity. Her skin was smooth, almost glowing faintly under the emergency lights. He moved quickly down the dark hallway of Station Helix 9, careful not to be seen. If anyone found him now, he'd be arrested for treason. Maybe worse. But he couldn't leave her. Not after seeing her eyes. Lyra's breathing was slow and uneven. Her silver hair stuck to her face like wet threads. He found a quiet storage room behind the old medbay, a place no one visited anymore. He laid her gently on a padded bench, grabbed a clean sheet, and covered her. For a moment, he just stared at her. She didn't look like a weapon. She didn't look like death. She looked young, sad, and very tired. Her hand moved slightly. She reached for him weakly, and her fingers brushed against his wrist. The pain was instant. It shot through his arm like electricity. Hot and wild, like a lightning strike that didn't burn, but shook his nerves. He gasped and jerked his hand away. His skin wasn't damaged. No cuts. No burns. But the sensation stayed like fire under the skin. She opened her eyes halfway and looked at him with worry. "I'm sorry," she whispered, voice dry. "I didn't mean to hurt you." Kyle swallowed and nodded. "It's okay," he said softly. "Just... what was that?" She looked away, ashamed. "It happens to everyone who touches me. Their bodies break down. They bleed, or worse. My cells reject foreign life. I'm not normal, but I'm still standing," he said. "You shouldn't be," she whispered. "One soldier tried. He screamed for 2 minutes before he collapsed. The rest wore suits. And still..." They kept dying. Kyle looked at his hand. The burn was fading. "Maybe I'm different." She blinked slowly, confused. Why would you be? He didn't know. But something told him this wasn't just luck. It was more than that. "Rest," he said. "I'll find you food. Something soft, easy to eat." She nodded slightly and closed her eyes again. Kyle stepped out and locked the storage room door from outside. Then he moved quickly through the base, acting normal. He stole a nutrition pack from the officer's kitchen, some fruit paste and warm broth from a broken vending unit. It wasn't much, but it would help. When he returned, she was awake again, sitting up slowly. She smiled faintly when he entered. "You came back," she said. "Of course I did," he said. "Here, try this." She took the pouch and sipped slowly. Her face lit up with surprise. "Sweet," she said. "This is sweet. I've never had anything like this. No one gave you food?" "They fed me through a tube. Cold, bitter paste. I hated it, but they said I didn't need pleasure, only survival." Kyle felt sick hearing that. She was treated like an object, not a living being. Lyra looked at him again. "Why are you helping me?" He hesitated, then said, "Because no one else did, and because I don't think you're what they say you are." She smiled for real this time. It was small and tired, but it reached her eyes. Then suddenly, her body shook. She coughed hard. A dry, harsh sound. He rushed forward and held her shoulders to keep her from falling. Again, her hand brushed his skin. This time, the pain was stronger, but it didn't push him away. It pulled him closer, like heat in winter. His heartbeat pounded in his ears, but he held her steady until she stopped coughing. When she looked up again, her eyes were full of fear. "You're bleeding," she whispered. He looked down. A thin line of blood had formed under his wrist where she touched him. Just a drop. Nothing more, but her voice cracked. "It's starting. You need to leave me. Please go, before it gets worse." He didn't move. Instead, he wiped the blood with his sleeve and said, "I'm not leaving you, Lyra. Whatever this is, we'll find a way." "No one ever said that to me," she whispered. Not once in all these years. Kyle sat beside her, not touching but close enough that she could feel his presence. "I'm saying it now," he replied. Outside, the base alarm started again. More reports of intruders, system errors, unknown energy spikes inside the small storage room. Lyra looked at the human beside her. For the first time, her heart beat not from fear, but from hope. And something inside her started to change. It was too small to notice. But her body, her cells, something deep was beginning to shift. Not from medicine, not from science, but from the warmth of one human's touch. The secret they tried to bury. Kyle didn't sleep that night. He sat near the door of the storage room, back against the wall, watching Lyra rest. Her breathing was more stable now. Her skin had a healthy shine. She no longer looked like someone one step from death. But that didn't comfort him. It made him more afraid. Because if she was healing, then they'd come for her soon. The station had sensors everywhere. It was only a matter of time before someone noticed a power spike or a security breach. Kyle needed answers. Real answers. Who was she? Why was she locked away? And why could he touch her without dying? He quietly slipped out of the storage room and headed to the research archives hidden deep inside the restricted zone. His engineer badge wouldn't get him inside, but he knew how to crack door panels. It only took 5 minutes to bypass the lock and another 2 to hack into the data files. He typed the name he had seen on the chamber. Project E311. Nothing came up. Access denied. Level Omega Black. He typed it again, slower. Then, he tried a different trick. Engineers had a backdoor code to test faulty AI logs. It wasn't perfect, but it let him pull one thread of data from a buried memory file. A video started playing. Grainy, static-filled. He saw Lyra in the same glass chamber, but younger, maybe a few years ago. A man in a lab coat stood outside, speaking to an officer. His voice was cold. She was created as a hybrid weapon. Bioengineered from 3 apex species and encoded with an adaptive viral field. Touch transmission is 100% fatal to organic life. The officer frowned. What about long-term effects? She's unstable. Her DNA breaks down slowly without host interaction. That's why she cries. It's her survival instinct. She bonds through empathy. That's how the body delays decay. But it always fails. Every trial subject died. We estimate she can only survive if completely isolated or completely bonded. Kyle's blood went cold. The video continued. There was one exception. The scientist said, Subject 46 showed signs of resistance. He lasted 10 minutes before death. We believe there may be a key, some genetic factor, that can bond with her instead of rejecting her. But the risk is too high. We've halted testing until a stable subject appears. The screen turned black. Kyle stood frozen. He felt cold all over. They had made her. She wasn't born. She was built in a lab, made to kill, not by choice, but by design. And yet, she cried like a child. She laughed when she tasted fruit. She said, "Please, and thank you." She wasn't a weapon. She was someone's daughter. Footsteps echoed down the hallway. Kyle panicked. He wiped the data trace, sealed the console, and disappeared into the vent shaft before 2 guards entered the room. Yee made it back to Lyra out of breath, sweat on his forehead. She looked at him and tilted her head. What did you find? He hesitated. They made you, he said, in a lab, from the DNA of killers and survivors. They called you a weapon. She looked down. Silent. I don't believe them, he said quickly. I don't care how you were made. You're not a weapon to me. Lyra's voice was soft. I knew. I heard them say it when they thought I was sleeping. They said I was poison with a pretty face. Something they'd never release. Something they'd destroy once they were done. Kyle clenched his fists. They're not going to destroy you. I won't let that happen. You're just one human, she said. What can you do? He smiled weakly. Apparently, I'm the right human. You touched me. I didn't die. Maybe I'm the key they were looking for. Maybe it's not a curse. Maybe it's a match. Lyra's eyes widened. A genetic match? He nodded. I don't know how, but we're going to find out. Together. Suddenly, the emergency sirens roared across the station. A new alarm, one that hadn't been heard in years. Warning. Biosignature escape detected. Project E311 missing. Lyra froze. They know Kyle ran to the wall, pulled open a secret vent hatch. Come on, we have to go. Now. She stood up slowly, still, weak but stronger than before. She followed him into the tight metal tunnel, crawling side by side. The sound of boots echoed through the walls. They were scanning every hallway now. Kyle led her deeper into the station's underbelly. Into old tunnels from the mining era, forgotten by most. He had one goal now, escape. But as they crawled in silence, Lyra touched his shoulder and whispered, Why do you trust me? Kyle looked at her. Because I saw the truth. You're not the death they fear. He smiled faintly and added, You're the life they don't understand yet. And somewhere behind them, the hunt had begun. The chase, across frozen wastes. Snow blasted across the broken surface of the ice planet Tryon 4 as Kyle pushed open the old cargo hatch. The cold wind hit his face like knives. Behind him, Lyra shivered but didn't complain. Her silver skin shimmered under the icy light, and her breath came out in little clouds. They had escaped Station Helix 9 through a forgotten cargo chute, stolen a tiny mining skiff, and crashed hours later on this frozen world. It wasn't part of the plan. Nothing was anymore. Kyle pulled her gently down from the hatch. They landed hard in the snow. The wind howled like a wild beast, and ice stung their skin. The skiff had lost power in the crash. No heat, no comms, no guidance. Just wreckage and frost. He wrapped Lyra in a torn emergency blanket. She looked pale again, but not weak. Her eyes were alert, scanning the white horizon. Behind them, far in the sky, flashes of ships glowed. Military patrols, searching. They're tracking us, she whispered. Kyle nodded. Then we don't stop. They moved across the snowfields, step by step. The sun here was dim and low, and the sky never changed. The whole world felt frozen in time. Kyle's boots cracked over buried metal, the remains of an old war zone from decades ago. Wrecked mechs lay half buried in the ice, their bodies covered in frost. Lyra paused at one, placing her hand gently on the cold steel Kyle watched. Do you remember this place? She nodded. They brought me here once, for testing. I saw soldiers fall in the snow. I was just a child, but I remember the screams. Kyle felt anger rise inside him, but he kept moving. We'll get far enough. They won't find us out here. She shook her head. They'll always find me. I'm marked in their system. Every scanner in the fleet reads my signal. They'll never stop. Kyle turned to her. Then we changed the signal. Hide it. Break it. I'll figure it out. You really believe that? Yes, he said. I do. They found shelter inside the ribcage of a rusted mech half buried in a frozen crater. Kyle started a weak fire using wires and old reactor dust. It smelled strange but burned slow. Lyra sat near it, hugging her knees. She was quiet for a long time. I used to dream of places like this, she finally said. Cold, quiet, empty, no scientists, no pain, just silence. Do you still dream? Kyle asked. Not since they put me in that glass box, she whispered. I forgot what dreams feel like. Kyle didn't know what to say, so he unzipped his coat and draped it over her shoulders. She looked at him, confused. You'll freeze, she said. Then we freeze together. He answered. She gave a tiny laugh. You're strange, human. No one's ever shared heat with me, or stayed this close without fear. I'm not afraid of you, he said. You should be, she replied. The last person who kissed me died before he could scream. Kyle blinked. Someone kissed you? It was part of a test, she said flatly. They told him to do it. He thought it would be fast, but it wasn't. Kyle looked down. Quiet. I don't want to hurt you, she added quickly. You're the only one who ever looked at me like a person, not like a thing. I'm not going anywhere, he said. Even if your touch burns, even if your blood kills, I'm still here. Outside, a low hum filled the air. The fire flickered. Kyle stepped out carefully and looked up. A black drone hovered far above, scanning the ground. They're close, he whispered. Lyra stood beside him. Her eyes began to glow faint blue. It wasn't fear. It was instinct. Something inside her reacted to danger, and the air around her shifted like static. Snow whipped faster. The wind turned wild. Stay behind me, she said. Kyle stared as the drone's scanner turned red. It locked onto them. Then the sky exploded with wind. A wall of white slammed into the drone, sending it spiraling into the side of the cliff. The crash echoed like thunder. Lyra fell to her knees, exhausted. Her skin dimmed, and her eyes closed. Kyle caught her before she hit the snow. What was that? I don't know, she whispered. It just happened. I didn't mean to. I didn't even think. Kyle looked at the wrecked drone. Its circuits were frozen solid. No signal, no trace. He smiled. Maybe you're not just dangerous, he said. Maybe you're powerful. She opened her eyes. What if they want me even more now? Then we give them a reason to fear you, he said. And we survive. Together. She leaned against him, trembling, not from cold, but from the strange new warmth growing in her chest. For the first time, Lyra wasn't running to escape death. She was running toward something else. The kiss that changed her cells. The wind was screaming again. This time, not from Lyra's powers, but from the dropships above. Kyle could hear the deep roar of engines sweeping over the snowy cliffs. Bright lights cut through the darkness, scanning everything in their path. He held Lyra's hand as they ran, feet slipping across the frozen rocks. Her breathing was fast and shallow. She was burning up inside. They had spent 3 days hiding across the frozen wasteland. No food left. No fire. No shelter that lasted more than a few hours. And now, the military had found them. Red lights blinked in the sky, and soldiers in black suits were dropping from ropes like insects from a nest. Kyle pulled Lyra into a frozen cave barely big enough for the two of them. He collapsed against the wall, chest heaving. She fell into his lap, her silver skin flickering like dying light. They're too close, she whispered. I can feel the scanners. They're inside my head now. Kyle wiped the snow from her face. Just hold on. We'll find another way. No, she said. There's no more running. My body's shutting down. It always happens. They made me to survive short missions, not long escapes. I can't stop it this time. Kyle gritted his teeth. Don't say that. You've lasted this long. You've changed. You're not breaking apart. You're getting stronger. She shook her head. No, you don't understand. My cells, they feed off connection. I've been holding on because of you, but now it's burning out. The bond is fading. Kyle felt his heart twist. Then let's make it stronger. She looked at him, confused, leaned in slowly, eyes locked with hers. I don't care if it kills me. I don't care what happens. But if there's even one chance that something inside you is reaching for me, then let it happen fully. Kyle. Before she could stop him, he kissed her. Her lips were cold at first, then hot, like touching the heart of a storm. A light sparked between them, not outside, but inside their blood. A strange pressure filled the air. The snow stopped falling. The sound of the engines outside turned silent. Inside her chest, something broke and something else woke up. Her body lit up with glowing lines, blue veins of pure energy running across her arms, neck, face. Her silver skin shimmered with power, but it wasn't painful. It was soft, warm. Alive, Kyle didn't fall. He didn't scream. He didn't die. He opened his eyes and saw her glowing completely, eyes wide with shock. What did you do? She asked. I just believed in you, he said, breathing hard. And I think you believed in me too. She looked at her hands. Her skin was stable. Her cells weren't breaking anymore. They were forming a pattern. Strong, complete, balanced. For the first time in her life, Lyra's body wasn't rejecting the world. It was connecting with it. She turned and looked outside the cave. The soldiers were getting closer now, less than 500 meters away. Their scanners were glowing red. They were coming fast. But Lyra stood up slowly. Her feet touched the ground like she belonged there. The air around her began to shift again. Snow lifted gently into the air as if weightless. Kyle stood behind her, not afraid anymore. You don't have to fight them, he said. I'm not going to fight them, she said softly. I'm going to show them what they feared was never meant to destroy them. The first squad of black suit soldiers reached the cave. They raised their weapons. Stand down, one shouted. You are surrounded. The asset must return to containment. Kyle stepped in front of Lyra, his arms spread. She's not your asset anymore. Move aside, human, the soldier barked. She's unstable. She's more stable than any of you, he said. The soldier stepped forward. Then Lyra walked past Kyle. She raised her hand, but not in attack. Just a slow motion, like brushing the air. A wave of heat spread through the soldiers. Their weapons stopped working. Their suits froze in place, systems crashing. One by one, they dropped their gear and backed away. What is she doing? One whispered. Kyle smiled. She's becoming what you never let her be. The commander on the ship screamed orders through the radio. Terminate! Terminate now! But no one moved. No one dared. Lyra stood tall in the snow, glowing like a star fallen from the sky. She didn't shout. She didn't destroy. She simply existed, and the world bent around her. Then she turned back to Kyle, eyes still shining. I don't feel sick anymore, she whispered. I feel full, like I've been waiting my whole life to be touched and not die. Kyle walked up to her and took her hand. This time, There was no burn, no blood, just warmth, he whispered. You were never meant to be a weapon, Lyra. You were meant to be a miracle. And above them, for the first time in years, the sky opened, and sunlight broke through the clouds. She's not a weapon, she's a cure. The world watched in silence, from orbiting satellites, secret bases, and hidden stations across the galaxy. Every screen showed the same thing. An alien girl glowing in the snow, standing beside a human who held her hand without fear. Scientists gasped. Generals cursed, and doctors leaned in closer. Because what they saw in her body wasn't death anymore. It was life. Lyra's cells were rewriting themselves. The virus inside her wasn't destroying. It was healing. Where it used to attack, now it repaired. Where it used to burn, now it calmed. Her DNA was stabilizing in real time. And somehow, the human standing beside her was the key. Kyle's touch had triggered a change they never thought possible, but not everyone wanted peace. In the deep halls of the Galactic Medical Council, a cold voice broke the silence. We must retrieve her, said Director Maeve, at any cost. Her blood may be the cure to every disease we've failed to fix. Aging, radiation burns, planet sickness, all of it. But she's sentient. A younger researcher argued. She's alive. She's not just a sample. She's a person. She's property. Maeve replied. She was made in our labs. She belongs to us. Send. The collectors. Back on Tryon 4, Kyle and Lyra stood at the edge of the frozen cliffs. The military had pulled back after seeing what she did. No more attacks. No more orders. Just fear and silence. They found a small outpost left behind by miners years ago. It had heat, food, and even working water. Kyle helped her settle in. He cleaned her wounds and laughed with her as she tasted real soup for the first time. It was peaceful for one full day. Then a strange ship landed nearby. Not a warship, not a rescue team, a clean white vessel with a red cross marked on the side. Kyle stared through the window. Medical team, he said. But they're not here to help. You, are they? Lyra shook her head. They'll want to take my blood. Maybe all of it. We're not going to let that happen, he said. But when the door opened, the team didn't come with weapons. They came with silence. A woman in a gray lab coat stepped forward, holding nothing but a scanner. We don't want to hurt you, she said. We just want to understand what you've become. Kyle didn't answer, but Lyra stepped forward. You already understand, she said. You made me. You called me a virus. Now that I've changed, you call me a cure. But I'm not yours. Not anymore. The woman nodded. Then let us prove it. Let us test your new blood, not to take it, but to copy it, to help others like you. Children dying across the stars, wounded soldiers, sick civilians. What you carry now could change everything. Kyle looked at Lyra. Her face was calm, her eyes glowing softly. Only if I choose, she said. And only if Kyle stays beside me. You'd trust a human more than us? The woman asked. I would trust him with my life, she said. Because he was the first one who didn't try to use me. He just held my hand when I was dying. The team backed away respectfully. They agreed to set up a small scan station outside the outpost. Lyra gave a small blood sample. Nothing painful, no machines that locked her down. Kyle stayed by her side the whole time. That night, the results came in. Her blood was rewriting dead tissue. Her cells were killing cancers in seconds. Her immune system could destroy every virus known to science. One drop could save a planet. They begged her for more. Not with chains. Not with threats. But with desperate hope. We're losing billions every year, one doctor cried. Your blood. It's the answer to everything. Kyle looked at her. It's your choice. No one else's. Lyra closed her eyes for the first time. She wasn't afraid of being used. She wasn't afraid of death. She was afraid of becoming something even bigger. Hope I will give, she said. But not as a test subject. Not as a weapon. As a person. On my own terms. Cheers filled the air across the galaxy. Her message was, to broadcast. I was made to destroy, but I choose to heal. And yet, deep in the shadows, Director Maeve watched the feed with a sharp smile. Let the world believe in her. Let them love her. Then we'll take her when they're blind. Kyle and Lyra didn't know it yet. But the real danger wasn't war anymore. It was those who smiled while planning her cage. And as Kyle pulled her close that night, whispering how proud he was of her, Strength Lyra couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming. Something worse than death. Death was her nature. But love was her cure. Kyle woke to silence. Not the gentle kind. The dangerous kind. The kind that felt too empty. No wind. No crackling fire. Just stillness. He sat up fast. Lyra wasn't beside him. Her blanket was still, warm. Panic gripped his chest. He grabbed his boots and rushed to the door. Snowflakes fell gently outside, but her footprints led away from the shelter, straight toward the landing field. In the distance, a white ship hummed low against the snow. A familiar red cross marked its side. But Kyle's gut twisted. Something was wrong. The ship wasn't from the same medical team as before. It had no identification. No signal broadcast. No doctors waited outside. Just shadows. He ran across the field, calling her name. Lyra! Then he saw her. She stood still near the ship's ramp, her silver hair blowing softly. A tall man in a long coat stood beside her. Director Maeve. He had come himself. You don't need to be afraid, Maeve said gently. You're not a monster anymore. You're a gift. And gifts belong to the galaxy, not to one human. Come with me. You'll be safe. You'll be remembered. Forever. Kyle reached them, breathless. Don't listen to him, he said. You said you'd choose your own path. This isn't your choice. It's his trap. Lyra turned toward Kyle. Her eyes were calm, but something flickered behind them. Sadness. They threatened to kill you, she said quietly. They said if I didn't go, they'd take you instead. Maeve smiled coldly. You are important, yes. But the human, he's replaceable. Kyle stepped in front of her. Then, kill me, he said. Because I won't let her go with you. You want her blood. You want her power. But you don't care who she really is. Maeve nodded. You're right. I don't. I care about results. And she is the result. He lifted a small device. A silent signal pulsed. From the snow, 6 armored guards appeared. Weapons raised, Lyra's body tensed. The air grew warmer around her. Her jaw, skin starting to glow again. Her breath grew faster. Energy rose from her fingertips. You're hurting him, she said softly. I feel it in my bones. One of the guards stepped forward. Do not resist. You are classified. He never finished his sentence. The ground shook. Light exploded from Lyra's body. It wasn't fire. It wasn't lightning. It was something deeper, like raw life bursting out of her skin. The guards fell back, eyes wide. Their suits stopped working. Their hearts raced out of control. Not from pain, from healing. Their wounds from old battles began to close. Scars vanished. Hair grew back. One guard fell to his knees crying, I can't breathe, he said. Not from harm, from peace. Maeve stepped back in horror. What are you? Lyra turned to him. Something you can never own. She stepped beside Kyle and took his hand again. He gave me more than safety. He gave me choice. He gave me love. Kyle smiled. And you gave me everything I never knew I needed. The sky above them changed ships arrived. Not warships, but medical fleets, refugees, people from across the galaxy. They had seen the broadcast. They had followed her voice. They didn't come to take her. They came to be near her, to thank her, to be healed. Lyra looked around and stepped forward, holding out her arms. A woman with a dying child came first. She placed the small girl in Lyra's arms. The girl opened her eyes for the first time in months. Her skin no longer pale. Her chest no longer weak. She smiled up at Lyra and whispered, "You're warm, one." By one, the crowd grew. Kyle stood back, watching it all. His heart swelled with something he couldn't name. Pride, love, wonder. But Lyra never looked overwhelmed. She looked complete later that night, after the crowds returned to their ships and the field grew quiet again. She sat beside Kyle, their backs against the outpost wall, watching the stars. "You were supposed to die when you touched me?" she said softly. "That's what they told me." "They told you wrong," he said. "You weren't made to end life. You were made to understand it. And now, you're free." She smiled, leaning her head against his shoulder. "And I'm keeping you. Forever. Even if I burn galaxies along the way, I want you there beside me." He laughed. "Then I'll walk with you into every storm." And as the stars shone above, and the snow fell gently once more, the galaxy began to remember not the weapon she once was, but the human who kissed her, and the girl who chose to live.